I'm Carmel Fisher, and you're watching the Sequire Spotlight. I'm also the Vice President of Platform Services here at Sequire at Strax Inc. With me, I have Mr. Michael Lavigne, President and CEO of Magellan Gold Corp with the ticker MAGE on the OTC markets, and we'll be reviewing their earnings for Q4. Mike, hi and welcome.
Thank you, Carmel. It's nice to be here with you today.
Wonderful having you. So just to get started, please give us a brief overview of Magellan Gold Corp and what the strategy is going forward.
Magellan's been around for about 10 years. Roughly a year and a half ago, the company decided to kind of change its focus. It's always been a mining company, gold and silver it had kind of focused on in the past. But some of their projects didn't quite get off the ground like they'd hoped they were, so they wanted to change the direction that they went. So they asked me to come in and help them look at some strategies for moving Magellan in a slightly different direction. And so what we've tried to do with Magellan now is we've went out and are looking for smaller scale, high grade gold mines, which is kind of somewhat different than what we see going on in the industry today with most gold exploration companies and existing producing companies looking for small scale bulk mining operations. So usually they're bulk tonnage, meaning they're going to be a surface operation of some sort, not underground. And what we're looking for is going into areas primarily in the Western United States, where there's been historic gold production. We know that gold's been produced there in the past, but for various reasons, these projects have been abandoned. And so our hope is to find these, previous, producers and be able to kind of shortcut the exploration development time for the project through being able to piggyback off the historic exploration development and infrastructure that's been there on the properties. Again, we're looking for high grade, smaller scale operations, and you see today being the targets of most exploration companies.
Excellent. How would you say Magellan Gold is different to the rest of the mining and exploration industry?
Again, we kind of touched on it there, where we see, if you look at the exploration industry over the last 30 years, there's been a sharp decline in the number of new discoveries. And that has even decreased more in the last decade and even, significantly more in the past 3 years. And there are a lot of people out there looking for gold. The problem is that a lot of it, this property's been over before, and they've kind of, again, not focused on some of these smaller high-grade operations. Typically, when you get into a larger mining company, for example, the project's just too small for them. And so we want to go in there and kind of exploit these opportunities, not get into the game where the big guys are playing, and stay in a lane that we believe gives us the opportunity to find high-grade gold, piggyback off the existing, historical data, the existing infrastructure, and shortcut the time from exploration to production. And so that's kind of where we're different today than most of the people that are out there doing exploration work in the mining industry.
Right, and so you mentioned grades. What kind of grades were reported in some of the previous reports?
Well, most of the things we've seen in the past, we have, when they have been able to kind of do a mineralized zone or an ore body of such, these grades have ran in the neighborhood of about a half an ounce and slightly higher per ton on an average basis, with multiple, assays that were, in multiple ounces per ton. So what we've seen historically is the grade kind of runs in this thing somewhere between about a half and 0.6 ounces per ton, which is very significant, especially at today's gold prices.
Excellent. How does Magellan Gold plan on expanding its resource base?
Well, the first thing we're going to do is we've taken these multiple, if we kind of step back in the history of Magellan Gold, it was originally discovered in the early 1900s and went through a number of owners over the last now over 100 years. And each of these various owners have done different amounts of exploration, development, and even production. The most significant production in the property came in the early 1940-41 type of time frame, when the mine was shut down in 1942 during World War II by the War Powers Act. And that was the last significant production, although owners after that time have come in and done significant amounts of development and exploration. The property that we were talking about, the Center Star mine, our initial property, I guess we kind of skipped over that. In the Center Star is our first initial acquisition that we've made with Magellan. And so the production there, again, ceased in 1942. At that time, they were running, about 1/2 ounce per ton, which was much different. But as the gold markets declined over the years and rose, and different individuals went in there to do additional work on the property, we've been able to find the historical reports from these various groups. And of course, geology hasn't changed in 100 years. They still kind of deal with an exploration on a somewhat similar basis. And so we now have a property that produced gold back in the 40s. It has over 4,000 feet of horizontal underground workings and multiple defined mineralized or ore blocks that we hope we can go back in. And so our initial exploration will be to go in to duplicate the sampling and the exploration work that was done on these reports and try and verify these ore blocks that were defined previously. We have information that shows that they've blocked out in a couple of small areas, roughly 70,000 tons of ore that run just a little below 0.6 ounces per ton. Now, if we can go in there and validate those historical geological workings, right there is over $75 million worth of gold in today's market. So our initial idea is to go in, explore, duplicate the historical work that we've seen done there in the past, and hopefully, if we can come up with the same results of them, we could get into a very near-term production opportunity and start producing. At the same time, we will then continue to expand the resource underground in the areas that we are working in there now, and we'll drill underground. But on the surface, back in the mid-'80s, there was a lot of surface work and trenching that was done that exposed about 2,200 feet of strike along the mineralized zone, starting from where we are working at today. So we believe that with these trenching and the surface exploration work was done, that the extension of our property and the ore body is at least 2,200 feet, as they found 2,200 feet at about depths of as deep as 60 feet. So there's a significant amount of, extension on the current working areas, and we'll go back out there again and try to reduplicate those areas where they were working on the surface and begin some surface drilling to hopefully expand the resource from the information we've already been developed in the past.
Excellent. And I know one of the core sentiments or goals for Magellan is to go where you know gold exists. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, we don't have to, go out there and spend the kind of money that a lot of exploration people do to build and understand where the gold is. I mean, especially when we look at, and if we can duplicate situations like we have at the Center Star, where we have multiple historical reports that block out. I talked about the one roughly 70,000 ton block that we have, but there are additional reports that block out another 30 tons here, another 20 tons there. We have work that was done on a drift that was run back in the early 80s, where they cross-cut two new vein systems that were not previously discovered on some of the lower workings, where we have assays that exceed 2 ounces per ton. So again, we think the opportunity is to get into early production, shortcut the exploration development process, and get to near-term production, and hopefully then have production monies that we can use to spend on exploration, and to some extent bootstrap this and not create the kind of dilution that most junior mining companies have to do to continue the exploration on the project.
Sounds great. To touch on the markets just for a bit, over the past month, MAGE rose by 8.2% and had the heaviest volume day, I think on March 8th, with about 28,000 shares changing hands. Of course, on the macro level, the market's been impacted by the geopolitical environment, the issues, Russia, Ukraine, we all know the story, causing major volatility across the equities markets. Now, at this point, we know that gold is typically and commonly used to hedge against inflation. What would you like to add, in terms of the industry, given these times, and also major stock?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you've touched on, the reason why people need to look at gold today. I mean, we're at, inflation that we have not seen in over 40 years now. The geopolitical concerns that we see across the globe has created a really unstable environment. These are always times when you go and look at gold that can hold value during times of inflations and times of this kind of instability. And so from our standpoint, we look at this as just a terrific opportunity, because gold is hopefully going to be coming into favor with the investors today. We obviously need to do a better job of telling our story with regards to it. So that's why today is good for us, to help us, maybe reach an audience that they can learn more about what we're doing here in Magellan. But the nice thing about Magellan is, because of the small scale, because of the existence of the infrastructure and exploration work that is done there, we can see a significant drop in the price of gold and still run good margins on our production of gold. So, this is good for us, because it's great that we can make, incredible margins with the price of gold today. But because of the high grade nature of our thing, we kind of take some of the risk out of this if gold does, start to retrace a little bit.
100%. Currently, there's about 11.3 million shares outstanding reported. What portion of this is insider held, and what can you say about the benefits that holds, or suggests from a market cap standpoint?
Well, when I look at the insiders, I'm going to kind of include kind of the previous group that were kind of running and controlling Magellan. Because they are friends of the company, they are the people that wanted to look for a new direction for Magellan, and they own a significant amount of the shares. So between kind of the old insider group who helped recapitalize the company, so they're friends, they're in this for the long haul, and with the new management group and new people that have come in, probably somewhere in the neighborhood about 70% of the stock is controlled by insiders. And the true public float out there is probably under 2 million shares today. So, we think that, this is a great opportunity. We think that we're significantly undervalued at, a market cap now of roughly only $3 million. An historic producer with known gold sitting there. We think that, we're significantly undercapitalized. I mean, significantly undervalued.
Okay. You mentioned your management team. Would you like to shed some light on who they are and what expertise they bring to the table?
Yeah, the first member I'll talk about is Greg Schifrin. Greg and I have been partners on a number of projects in Alaska, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Nevada, various places. And Greg's been a geologist for 40 some years now, very much oriented on the exploration side of things, has great contacts in the industry, especially in the Western United States with smaller and mid-sized mining companies and exploration companies. And Greg, being a geologist, and he is actually the person who was holding control of the Center Star project that we acquired. And so it was natural, him being a partner of mine in other projects, and him holding the ownership that he then we acquired from him. Greg's wealth of knowledge and his previous knowledge of the Center Star is of great help. One of the other board members is a gentleman by the name of Deepak Malhotra. Deepak is a PhD in metallurgy and a PhD in mine economics. He has worked for major mining companies across the globe and brings an absolute wealth of knowledge, in all phases of mining, especially, working on kind of the processing, production, and financing stages of a mining company. Mark Rodenbach has a little bit of history in the mining industry, but has a financial background and kind of a business background. And so Mark is kind of, one that helps us, kind of looking at things from a business perspective, where Greg and Deepak focus an awful lot on kind of the mining and processing elements of the project.
Excellent. Quite an expansive skill set there between the few of you. So a final question, as a US listed stock in the exploration phase, that is not really typical for, many of the other mining companies that are like juniors or in this exploration phase. How do you see that being beneficial for MAGE, firstly, and secondly, how does it compare? What's unique about that?
Well, it is unique. I mean, we obviously see most of the junior mining companies, up in Canada, and they have a robust marketplace there for helping funding junior companies. It's not quite as prevalent here in the United States, but there's also sometimes some complexities with regarding, the cross-border issues with securities and the shareholders and how you can hold and sell stocks and what have you. So, we think that there's some benefit for those people who make it an easier process. We don't have as much competition when you look at strictly just US, exploration and junior mining companies. So, I mean, I think people can look at this from varying perspectives, whether it's a positive or a negative. We like the idea that we're somewhat unique in this marketplace and offer those, investors who want the idea of not having to deal with some of the foreign security issues you have to deal with the Canadian companies, that they can come and find the same sort of, great opportunities with the US, junior company.
So just overall sentiment about the industry and where you see things evolving to over the next, say, 3 to 5 years, given a quite significant contribution, I believe, to Barrick Gold not so long ago. What are your sentiments? Where do you think this is going?
Well, I think that, there are a lot of, we talk about just kind of those existing things earlier today with inflation and just kind of the geopolitical side of this thing. Now, whether these things are lasting a long time or a short period of time, there is significant movements that's going on, here with sustainable energy and these sorts of things that are going to require, look, if you're going to have electric cars and you're going to have batteries and you're going to have these sorts of things, you're not going to do it without, mineral production. You can't make batteries, you can't make cars, you can't make any of these sorts of things that are going to support, the sustainable energy policies that we see being more and more popular today. And so mining is going to be necessary. And, we can't be reliant on foreign sources for all of our mineral needs. So, I think that demand will continue to grow for a large portion of the mining industry, not just gold, but, all of the rare earths and the cobalts and the nickels and the things that, are going to be necessary to build, cohesive, sustainable energy program.
100%. Thank you so much. I want you to please leave our viewers with 3 key takeaways from this conversation, and then lead them please to the best place for them to find information on Magellan Gold Corp.
Yeah, I think the 3 takeaways is we are going to go find gold in existing, that we know where gold exists today. We're going to try and benefit off of the existing infrastructure and historical information that of that property, and hopefully then be able to utilize and take this property into very near-term production. And at that time, hopefully being able to use cash flow from near-term production to sustain the operations and exploration, going forward with that project. You can find us at magellangoldcorp.com, and all of our contact information should be there.
Excellent. Everybody, this is Mr. Michael Lavigne, President and CEO of Magellan Gold Corp with the ticker MAGE. I'm Carmel Fisher, and you're watching the Sequire Spotlight.